America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network. Housing used to be the cornerstone of the American dream, but today, for small business owners, young families, and first-time buyers, homeownership feels further and further away. Now, major U.S. home builders are reportedly exploring a massive plan to build up to 1 million entry-level homes, a proposal dubbed the Trump Homes Initiative, which could inject more than $250 billion into the housing market and potentially help millions of Americans become homeowners. Today, we're joined by Michael Burkentine, a nationally recognized real estate developer and the head of Burkentine Real Estate Group. He's also a board member of America First Policies Institute's Making Housing Great Again initiative, helping shape policy aimed at expanding supply, cutting bureaucratic barriers, and restoring homeownership for younger Americans. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, Elaine, thank you for having me.
Well, it doesn't get any more Main Street than homeownership in America. I mean, that's really the American dream. It's what we talk about. But there's a major crisis and housing shortage. Let's kind of take a step back and look big picture on how bad it is and how did we get here? Yeah.
And again, thank you for having me today. What an incredibly hot topic right now as the midterms are approaching and so forth. It's just really a very significant moment in people's lives to be able to afford a home. We've become a renter nation over the past really decade. It's gotten stronger and stronger. AFPI just came out with a beautiful chart that shows how wages have trended down and we have all of the costs trending up, and there's just been this huge gap. So I think that the housing topic right now and the fact that the administration is talking about it is just so awesome, because a lot of administrations have really, looked at lower middle class housing and subsidized housing. And there's been a lot of effort, government subsidies when it comes to that. But now we're talking working class, middle class, where are the apprenticeships? Where are the jobs coming? Bringing manufacturing back to America. We have a president that is a developer. We are in such a great spot right now to have him as our commander in chief and leader, to be able to give developers and builders of all shapes and sizes the opportunity to right this wrong and start bringing that chart, and trend that down.
So in terms of the housing shortage, where are we at and where should we be at?
Yeah, so specifically, depending upon what study, we're roughly 5 million homes short of supply. Now that seems like a big number, but in reality, we can right that wrong fairly quickly. But we need builders to build, we need the housing supply to correct, and we need to cut the red tape, when it comes to regulation and the things that we go, for example, if the cost of lemons goes up, right? And you've said this before, the cost of lemons goes up, the cost of lemonade goes up. And right now, we as developers are battling an array of different hurdles when it comes to costs, right? We're buying land at a higher price. We're developing lots per the zoning at larger lots, which needs to be reformed in our country. So there's many, many things that we can do, but really around 5 million is the number, I would say. And we need to right that wrong.
Well, for small business owners listening to the show, which is really where we focus our audience, how does the housing crisis directly impact our Main Street businesses, do you think?
Well, that's a really easy answer. If you think about the supply chain and the amount of people that housing feeds, it's incredible. It's hundreds of thousands of people per business if you're a medium size, because not only do you have your employees and their families that you're working for and creating opportunity for, but you also have the tradesmen, the suppliers, the apprentices that are being trained to come into the trades. We're creating all of those opportunities. And when you look at it, the fact that the president wants to bring manufacturing back into America, that just increases Main Street businesses tenfold. It is such a huge thing when it comes to Main Street business and bringing just economic growth. Think about this: the more communities we build, the more people we put in communities, and we have them right size where they're building homes, they're buying homes that are affordable on smaller lots, then they have more money to go down to Main Street, actual Main Street, and buy clothing and participate in other economical things. Elaine, right now, we don't have that opportunity. I mean, we all know friends and family and coworkers that are struggling. They have good jobs, they're renting, and maybe they own right now, but they're, for lack of a better word, broke, and they're not able to support Main Street. So it's very important that we get back on track and we start to support that ecosystem.
Why do you think in the last 15 to 20 years, it seems like maybe the focus has not been on these entry level starter homes, and builders are focusing more on higher end homes? I mean, 30 years ago when I bought my first home, I mean, it was affordable. It wasn't that I was wealthy or anything, but I could come up with the initial down payment. To be honest, the interest rates were about what they are now, even though everyone's saying they're so high, which I thought they were reasonable back then because my parents were saying we paid 13% when we bought our first home. So I thought, awesome.
Right.
Um, but those homes just don't exist. I mean, they really don't. People are buying homes and they have an expectation of when they sell, if they sell in 2 to 3 years, of making hundreds of thousands of dollars in increase in profit.
Yeah, it's a great thought. So when costs go up and lot sizes are larger, and we are forced as developers to kind of go with that flow, if that makes sense. So if you imagine having a larger lot, say 1 acre, that's a very traditional lot right now in America. And you have a beautiful yard, but it costs us a lot more money to put that extra curb, street, asphalt, all of the things, utilities, all the things that go into that, plus the density and the divisor in the total land purchase is a lot higher because you have more road frontage. So if we can get those costs under control right there, then we don't have to build to the unit, right? We call it build to the unit. And if we can get that smaller, we can build more townhomes. We can build smaller single family homes, which is really where I have put a tremendous amount of conversation with the White House directly and talking with them about right sizing on the zoning requirements. Now, we do not, Secretary Turner, and I agree with him, we don't want to go into these towns and municipalities and say, this is what we want to do. We're the federal government. That is not what we want to do. We want to go in, we want to advise, we want to counsel based on data. American Enterprise Institute, American First Policy Institute, we all have some significant data that shows if we do certain things in that zoning, we can really help Americans and the affordability crisis.
The zoning that you're referring to is happening at the local level, or how does the federal government impact that
Yeah,
zoning?
so right now everything is at the local level,
Mhm.
and like Secretary Turner mentioned, we don't want the federal government to intervene with that. But what we want to do is coach, teach, and mentor. A lot of these towns and municipalities, give them a playbook, if you will. And we've also discussed with White House about an incentive, right? Can we incentivize some of these towns and municipalities through different grants and so forth that we can invest into their Main Street and all of those opportunities? And if we can come up with some sort of policy where we can take these municipalities and townships and say, hey, listen, we're gonna give you X, Y, and Z if you listen to these requirements that we think would really do well, then we're working as a team. Because a lot of towns, for example, in Pennsylvania, a lot of towns, it's very small. You have local people that are on the planning commission board, etc. And no one is an expert. They're doing a service, right? And they're doing the best they can. But all we want to do is bring in some of this information to help better inform them on how the economics could change if we modified some zoning.
How does the large companies that have come in and built full neighborhoods of single family homes that are rentals impact the housing crisis, the housing shortage?
Yeah, so a lot of homes that are built by some of these invitation homes for rent, the Blackstones of the world, they are communities that have large institutional monies that basically go in, build these homes, and then they lease them up. I think what the president and the administration is allotting to here, and we're getting clarity day by day on exactly who are we calling out as these institutional buyers. But think of scattered sites right now, right, where you live in Los Angeles, let's say, in a neighborhood, and there's 5 homes for sale, and one of these institutional players comes in and buys all of those 5 homes and makes the cash on cash and the returns work, and they're paying $20, $30, $40,000 more than what me and you could pay as average consumers. That is what the president is really focused on. We don't want to have that institutional Wall Street like mentality that we're competing against and bidding against, because that's not American of us to do, right? That's not where we're founded. That's not how we're created. And so that is what I believe is the focus. And again, we're refining that as we speak.
Well, I can certainly see how that level of competition would drive up the cost of homes because it would drive up the demand. Now we as individuals are competing against these, huge corporations that are buying up 5 homes at a time or entire neighborhoods or building from the ground up. And then the demand is so high, an individual just can't compete with that. And of course, the supply decreases, and then you've got 5 buyers for every home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just can't have it. And I think it's great that the president shined light on this because it is an issue and we need to resolve it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the proposal. I love talking about solutions. One where the proposal is for up to 1 million entry-level homes. What exactly is the Trump Homes plan?
So, in a nutshell and high level, the Trump Homes is giving the ability at the private sector level a growth strategy, right? And a rental strategy. Again, all of these things are being vetted incredibly hard. And I will tell you firsthand that the White House is working very, very tirelessly to get these things in motion. And it's just been incredible to watch them work with the private sector. But the Trump Homes, which is a fun name, right? The president loves the names, and I think that one's spot on. But that program is to allow people to rent for a period of time and then use those monies to be able to cycle back into their down payment, which solves a couple things. Right now, a lot of people don't have that down payment. You mentioned earlier in the show that, when you went to buy a house, you had to really consider that down payment and it was a stretch and so forth. People are definitely feeling that right now. So as we approach the midterms, this is definitely going to be something that is extremely important for people and to consider.
So, but I know it's still being vetted and kind of worked out, but just to sort of, in a nutshell, this is basically like a lease to buy option within these homes. Are are these government-owned homes, or are you incentivizing home builders to build these homes and put those options within the sale of the home?
Yeah, so this is a private sector play.
Okay.
The federal government is really limited, which is, the whole administration's perspective on many things that we roll out. But you know, yeah, it's going to be a private sector play, and we need to come together and rally together to figure out exactly the best policies to roll it out and make sure that the American people have the ability to buy that home and the plan is executed to perfection.
Well, that's what I was gonna how realistic is a goal of building 1,000,000 homes? What would really need to happen to make that happen at that scale?
Well, it's a very tricky question. It's not a snap of a fingers. A lot of the things that we're talking about, the zoning reform, the deposits, making sure people can afford the rents that are going to be required to be able to satisfy the mortgage and how the economics are going to work. That all needs to be vetted. But I think, again, going back to smaller homes, if the house is an economical size, and I always go to townhomes. Right now, we're starting to get a lot more townhomes in America, which is great because it's a great transitional product. It allows people to have babies at an earlier age and still have some money in the bank. It's such a great house. The townhome has become the small single family home of America,
And they're
and
low maintenance.
low maintenance, right?
Yeah.
You share walls unless you live on the end. They're great, 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 and we build many of them with our company, and we've gone across the country and really put those into play, and people have loved it. But yeah, I mean, I think the Trump homes will work. I think any idea is a good idea right now, and we need to put a lot of pressure and be very open and honest about whether it's going to work or whether it's a bad idea.
I mean, look, hats off to you for working with the administration on trying to figure out a solution because affordability is such a big issue. But you literally have so many puzzle pieces to deal with. I mean, you yourself said the local municipalities are the ones, instituting the local zoning laws that are impacting how big, how many, how the gutters, the curbs, all of that. Then you've got the local cities that are collecting the property taxes, or the states that are collecting the property taxes. You've got the homeowners insurance. All of that is driving costs. You're dealing with a very complicated, what could be a very big hornet's nest. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've come across in terms of navigating this? For example, I live in Florida. Homeowners insurance is just frightening. It's terrible. The hurricanes, the increases every year, even though you don't even make a claim, they're horrible. So, when you're talking to somebody in Florida, we've got our challenges. I'm sure if you talk to someone in California, they've got their challenges.
Right. Yeah, I mean, right now, number one, deregulation. Everybody talks about deregulation and cutting the red tape, but what does that mean? Things like getting into the watershed acts and all of these things that increase cost exorbitantly for engineers, stormwater erosion and sediment control, overreach of federal reviews. We're actually changing that right now, which is really awesome to see in the House. And things like endangered species and the amount of stuff that we have to stay away from. Um, a second thing is utilities. Some of these towns that we build in are super restricted on utilities, and if we can bring those utilities back to life and we increase the amount of sewer capacity and water capacity and gas, we are able to build more houses and increase supply. And then, again, I always go back to zoning. We got to fix the zoning, and that's a big piece.
I would think your biggest allies on a project like this, an initiative like this, would be your very small and mid-sized developers versus a mass scale that could really just turn into kind of a too big to fail situation again. But working through your small and mid-sized developers would be your best friends on something like this?
Yeah, I think honestly, Elaine, I think it's going to be a mixture of everybody. There is the leading builders of America, and I speak with Ken, who leads that effort in DC frequently, and those guys definitely have a part in this as well. The DR Hortons of the world and so forth. They are buying up a lot of land right now, buying up a lot of houses. We're developing lots for them. They're making their statement, which is going to help the housing supply. But also small and medium sized builders definitely have a huge part in making sure that we build and increase that supply. So I think it's a mixture of everybody.
Okay, so let's say we solve the problem and we say, here's the plan, let's go. Do we have the labor to build these homes? 1 million homes. Do we have the skilled labor?
The
Plumbers,
labor's
carpenters, electricians. I mean, think about all the skilled labor we need.
The labor has been a discussion point for many, many years. And we as a company have actually taken some of that into our own hands. We're developing a training center right now, which is really awesome. Imagine a warehouse where you have plumbing over here, electrical over here, HVAC over here, appliances. And we're actually teaching young folks and people that want to learn the trades to be able to come in and, either join our business or join other businesses. And we're doing this for the community and the betterment of the community. But initiatives. Mike Rowe's been very hot on this topic for many, many years, and he's really helped. And but there's places like ABC in Baltimore, training centers that are one of the top 3 in the country. Who I knew the director very, very well, good friends, Chris Hadfield, and we're doing phenomenal things down there with apprenticeships. And he when he comes and talks to me about what he's doing and the amount of people that he's placing, and the difference in lives that he is making in these organizations across the country, it is incredible to see. I will tell you also, one promising thing is, if you come out to our job sites, you're starting to see more young people
Mhm.
that have hammers and drills, and they're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're leaving at 5 o'clock at night. So that American worker and that tough grit is coming back. A lot of people come up to us, they say, Mike, should I go to trade school? Should I go to college, 4 year, 2 year? And our advice right now is, if you want to go into computer science and things, and go work for Elon Musk and do incredible things there, then yeah, a college education probably is your best bet. But if you want to make almost as much as some of these other people, if not more, and you have an upbringing where you could fix things and you have some basic common sense knowledge, we're telling people, hey, listen, go study. Maybe there's a program for you, a tech school, etc., and get your background and get into the trades and make fantastic money right now.
I'm glad you talked about training because that's really important. I think that's where the federal government could make a huge difference with public-private partnerships in getting into the high schools because, as Mike Rowe always talks about, not everybody's meant to go to college. And, for those kids that just end up flailing in college and not knowing what they want to do, and graduating with a degree that they can't get a job at because they don't have any hard skills. Those are the kids you need to reach and get them into training programs for these jobs that, are going to end up probably paying more than a lot of professional jobs because they're so in need. But Michael, I want to ask you, where can people go to learn more about you and the Trump Homes Plan and working with AFPI and all of the other great things that AFPI is working on?
Yeah, so check out all of our social media handles at Burkentine on Twitter, and we're posting a lot of things that are happening in real time, which is some great feedback for people to watch. And Burkentine.com is our family development website. That also shows a lot about who we are, what we're all about, and why we are America First and building America from the ground up with housing.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Main Street Matters today. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.